Welcome to episode 200 of the Animation Industry Podcast. I'm actually quite impressed with myself that I've taken this podcast this far. And also proud of myself because not a lot of podcasts make it to episode 200, and especially in the animation world. And to celebrate, I had new graphics and music made up. So the music you're listening to right now is by a super talented artist named Willem Mendo, and the graphics, which you should definitely check out online, are made up by the incredibly talented Luhan Wang, who is a classmate of mine at Sheldon College. So please go check them out and give them some love. And if you want to give me some love, you can check out my Patreon and support me there. And I've included a link in the description of this chat to Luhan, Willem, and my Patreon. So go check all of those out. Today's guest is none other than the incredibly cute, extremely charismatic, and some would say even talented animator, stop motion and 2D animator, Terry Ibele. That's right, me. And I'm having a really good friend of mine host this podcast instead of me so that I can be interviewed. And his name is Sheldon Koufman. We've known each other for about 15 years. He's an incredible human being. We met back in business school in my business days. And now he actually teaches business at Durham College and Wilfrid Laurier University. So, I don't feel like I need any other introduction. I feel like I've already given myself too much of an introduction. So let's just jump in.
Hello, Terry.
Hello, Sheldon.
This is a little bit weird because I've known you for, it's kind of scary to say, but for over a decade now. And I know a lot about you, and I think it's time to tell the world all about you. What do you think?
Sure. I feel like it's more like 15 years or something, no?
19, 20, and then I'm 34, you're 35?
34, we're the same age.
Are we the same age? I don't know. Okay,
I
we're
went,
the same age.
I went to a year of Bible college before Laurier. That's why we weren't in the same year.
And how did that turn out for you?
Well, here we are in animation. Not a pastor. I got a recommendation that I should be a pastor after I submitted my thesis work.
But
I mean,
on,
a big assignment.
Is this an opportunity to do some sort of like religious?
Oh, no.
Anyways, thank you, Terry, for inviting me to do this. I'm really excited. You gave me basically two stipulations. Number one, you wanted this to be real.
Yeah.
As real as possible. And that is going to be my goal, to ask you some interesting questions to get deep down into the real Terry. And number two, you said it's okay if we're vulnerable. So you know what? Get the tears going, because let's see the real Terry.
Okay, let's make me cry in 24 frames per second animation.
I don't know what that means because I'm not an animator. But sure, 26 frames might be better. I don't know. It sounds bigger. Isn't bigger always better? I don't know. Anyways, Terry, one of the things before we jump into this is I've been watching you from afar and from close for years now.
Wow.
And that's creepy, but I adore you. I respect you. I think like the world of you. But the truth is, I'm sure a lot of people who are listening to this podcast, maybe know the Terry the animator, maybe know Terry the fun, happy-go-lucky guy, but they don't maybe really know who Terry is.
Uh-oh. First you have me blushing, now you have me worried.
Okay, well, yeah, we're about to. Did you murder somebody? True or false?
Not yet in my life.
No, it might be me after this interview. So, I want to really start from the beginning because I don't actually know much about this. I know a lot of creative people, as you are, usually start off being creative as kids. Were you creative? What was Terry the 7-year-old? What was Terry the 10-year-old?
Oh my goodness, playing with Lego constantly at home. When I wasn't at home, going to the river and like catching animals and bringing them home, and fishing and being outside a lot, and also making tons and tons of crafts, like paper macheing all of my assignments all through school. Like I remember like grade 7, we had to like make a French presentation about a product we created. And I decided to like paper mache the product and like a whole line of product. It was like, I don't know why, but always drawing, always creative, always making crafts.
Were you the odd one? Like I remember in elementary school, all the boys, we would all be playing sports. I would play it because we had nothing else to do. But
Yeah.
were you? Did you play soccer? Were you
Yeah, I
playing
played soccer
basketball?
every recess. I mean, I
So,
was also kind of a loner. I didn't have that many friends, so I played soccer when I could, but otherwise I was just sticking to myself.
and what was life like at home? Like you come from southwestern Ontario, from a relatively small town, religious family. What was that life like? Because the truth is, the Terry who exists today, I don't know how close he is to that little boy.
Oh wow, yeah, that's a deep question. You grow up as a kid and everything's like you grow up in a bubble and the world's happy and everything's great. But yeah, I did grow up in a pretty conservative religious household, which I don't connect with anymore. So that kind of sheltered me from a lot of reality, I guess you could say. And it's also why I didn't connect with a lot of other kids growing up. So yeah, I spent a lot of time in church Tuesday evening, Friday evening, Sunday all day, blah 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 blah. Yeah, but I'd say because of that, I ended up spending a lot of time by myself in my bedroom or the basement, just like creating crafts. Cause like, a lot of things were off limits, like hanging out with people who weren't of the same religion, for instance. So like neighborhood kids and whatnot. So yeah, I spent a lot of time just entertaining myself, coming up with little stories, characters, etc., animations. Yeah.
You said you were lonely. Were you bored? Because it sounds like you weren't. It sounds like you had a lot to do.
No, I was constantly entertaining myself. I wouldn't say I was lonely. I was like, just I had video games. But like once I discovered animation in grade, I think like 7 or 8, it's all I wanted to do because it was like an amalgamation of like craft time, play time, story time, me expressing myself. So yeah.
How'd you discover it?
Oh gosh. I mean, there's many points. You have a flip book in that you make in math class because it's boring. But I remember, I think my first exposure to actual animation was Corel Draw, this old program where you could like draw a frame. It wasn't for animation, for frame by frame animation. I think it was more like a Photoshop basics. I haven't looked into it in years. But my brother and I, we like discovered you could make little animations. So we'd like draw little animations. He made like this squirrel in a tree, and I made like this man jumping, tried to do a walk cycle. I must have been like 11, maybe 12. And that's kind of how I discovered animation. And I just had so much excitement for the anticipation of how it would look when I clicked play. When you draw the individual frames, you can't really tell what it's going to look like till the end.
Mm.
So that's kind of how I discovered it. And I just wanted to do it more and became obsessed, I guess.
What was that feeling you got?
When I discovered it. It was
Like
just
when
so
you
exciting that I could like make something move and like I could draw my own characters and like I remember like I loved Sonic the Hedgehog and like on Sega Genesis and Super Mario Brothers 3 on Nintendo. And I would just like I think my brother would too. We just like draw our own levels, like just get a piece of paper and like sketch out what the level's going to be like, where the bad guys are, things you could jump on, stuff like that. And then when I started animating things, it was like I could bring my own world to life, and it was like super fun and just getting like lost in my own imagination, I guess, which still is how I feel now. Like, you hyper focus on a world you're creating and you're making it very slowly and just imagining really hard what it's like. It's great. It's like it's like drugs.
Hmm. So you do drugs. You did
Yeah.
drugs as an
I
11
do
year
drugs as a living.
old.
24 frames per second drugs.
Okay, but that's kind of crazy because there you are, you get this life high from doing animation, and what do? You go to Bible school after high school, and then what do you do after that? You go to business school. What the heck?
Yeah. Well, like, okay, so, animation gave me a lot of excitement, but like I also loved playing video games and like other things too, like and like watching movies. It wasn't like the only thing. But it just felt more of a sense of purpose for me, I guess, when I was making something. And I guess you know, kind of being a loner and not connecting with people, and then suddenly you make something and everybody's like, whoa, what's that? And then suddenly you have something to connect over. It was really great. I remember in high school, I just made a film on my own. It was like 10 minutes long, all in stop motion. And I remember being like so shy and like showing my like film teacher, and he was like, what the heck? And then we like entered it in all these competitions, won the local competition, got my name out there. Some stop motion animator from Toronto invited me to come see his workshop, like toured a studio in Toronto. Was like, it was just crazy. You know, I was just spent the summer making this film by myself for the purpose of my own entertainment, and then I had something to connect with people.
But but
um
but I don't get it. Like the world was telling you, the universe, if you want to call it that, was telling you you're an animator, and you go to Bible school, and then when you realize you don't want to do that, what do?
well,
You go to get a business. What the? Why weren't you listening to the
okay.
world?
The Bible college thing was a requirement from my parents. I had no say in that, basically. I always knew as soon as I finished high school, I have to do a year of Bible college to get like a religious grounding. So I was actually very upset about going to Bible college. I wanted to go to business school immediately. I got accepted into Laurier and Guelph and somewhere else. And I didn't want to go to Bible college, but I had to, just because, you know, you have to if your parents want to at that age. You're 18 years old. So
That's not the reality of most people's life.
correct.
That's your reality, right?
It's my reality. It was my reality. Yeah. And like, you know, I made the best of it. I joined the volleyball team. I like made friends there, joined community group, whatever. It was a good time. I still have to like keep up my grades to get into business school. But okay, so stop motion. I remember specifically like going through the yellow pages in high school and like career class, and there was nothing, like zero opportunities. I remember like emailing a couple studios in Toronto, and like in Kitchener, Waterloo, some agencies, and there was like no opportunities. At the same time, my brother, who had picked up CG animation and was like superstar, like got a Wikipedia article about him because he was like he was like super young and he like won this big thing. And then he was getting like offers from around the world. He was like in high school because he was super good at it. He's a CG animator by trade. Um, he runs his own software business now. And so he was getting like crazy amount of job offers and attention and like online, and like because it was just picking up, and there was like nothing for me. It was like nobody's doing stop motion right now. Claymation's not a thing anymore. Like there's like a big gap in years of stop motion work, specifically when I would have needed or wanted to find a career in it. So part of me was like, all right, I need a stable career. I need something that is gonna potentially um, help me build my life independently, just because of, you know, family situation, the religious thing. I wanted to kind of leave that. And so I knew that I would need something that could help me be independent. And business seemed like a good, solid grounding where I could make a good income and like, you know, have some ego. And so, yeah, I went to business school after that and pursued marketing.
So I don't want to gloss over that, and maybe this is too personal, but I'll ask it anyways. When you said you didn't want to go the Bible route,
Yeah.
that wasn't just you saying I'm going to become an accountant or a marketer. That was actually you saying goodbye to your family to some extent.
Um, I mean, you know, looking back, maybe it wasn't at the time. You know, it's, you know, I feel like there were a lot of things that I was pursuing that I knew wouldn't lead to relying on my like family. I guess I didn't have the best relationship with my father, and so looking back, I guess if you were to like be poignant and clear about it, yes. But at the time, I wasn't clear about any decisions I was making. I guess I just felt compelled to go to business school because of what I mentioned. It wasn't like I'm leaving the situation. This is my escape. Basically, you know, by the end, when I got a job in Toronto, which was a different city than Kitchener Waterloo, I still wasn't like bye forever. But then some things happened that basically ended that way, anyways. So, yeah, I don't know. I'm much more clear about the decisions I'm making now at this point in my life. Whereas like looking back, it was more like just general feelings of what I should go towards and kind of pursuing that and not and just kind of putting all into that without really understanding why. And it led to a good place for me anyways.
What was business school like? Because as somebody who sounds as creative as you growing up, like to me, I listen, I went to business school too, but if I and I was a creative kid growing up too, like parts of it were hell to like sit and do math in
Oh my
classrooms.
goodness. Calculus, economics, accounting does not mesh with me at all. It was tough. First and second and a lot of third year were really, really tough. I remember super being so stressed all the time. Exams were so stressful, constantly studying and never really excelling. Like I remember like studying for hours and hours and hours and hours and hours for calculus and like doing all the extra work, going to all the extra, do the TA, all the like studying with people and like barely passing, like maybe 60% I got at the end. And I put so much work into it. So it wasn't great, but I did enjoy marketing because you can be creative, and that's how I always knew I wanted to end up in market in business and marketing. So marketing classes ended up being super easy for me. I remember like I got top grades in every marketing class I took, and I remember I was offended I got an A minus in something. I was like, really? Excuse me? So by fourth year, when you can choose all of your electives and like core studies, I guess I just chose everything marketing and got amazing marks and ended up on the dean's honor roll for business. So that was surprising and great.
When you were at Laurier, were you was anything creative? Like, was your creative career done? Were you going to be a marketer and that was your goal forever, or in the back of your mind you still had these dreams?
No, I basically told myself when I went to Laurier, I like, because I had done the research, I talked to the studios, they're like, we don't have anything. I literally put up like this big mental wall in front of like stop motion. I was also like animating a lot in my spare time. Like even in Bible college, I come home and animate something every single night. I made something like 60 short clay animated films. I don't know what happened to a lot of them, but basically every night I was animating. But once I went to business school, I kind of put up this big mental wall and said, there's no opportunity for me in this. This is kind of like this thing I used to do and enjoy, and I'm never going to pursue this again. There's no chance. It doesn't lead to anything positive or productive for me, so I'm not going to do it. So yeah, I kind of killed that part of me and wouldn't even allow myself to open it up or even attempt to animate anything. I was like, my brother does this. He's great. CG works for him. I can't do CG. It's not my thing. It's too mathematical. So all this other stuff that I do, it's not happening.
And so it sounds like you made a very, very conscious choice to go down the practical route.
Yeah.
However, you were still going home and you were animating. So it sounds a little bit like your heart was saying, go, 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 go. But your brain was saying, I'm going to go make money. I'm going to get a job. I'm going to be stable. I'm going to support myself. I'm going to maybe have a
Yeah.
family. Like it might like there. It seems like there's this weird fight going on inside. It
Oh, for
must have
sure.
done something to you, to your heart, to your soul.
Well, oh, 100%. I mean, I have two comments there. One is I was always creating artistic projects that weren't animation. I was like painting this giant, like 6 foot by 4 foot painting in my living room. I was making this like clay sculpture. I wrote a fantasy novel, which took me years, like tons of stuff because I just couldn't not create or do something artistic. But all the things I was doing just never felt true. They felt like they were close to the thing I wanted to do, but they were just a nice outlet. But the second thing is like, like people and myself are not just a one track mind. You're very complex. And I didn't have a lot of my needs filled when it came to stability and independence. And so, looking back, pursuing business allowed me to really build a grounding for myself, really figure out what I wanted to do, who I was, and help me feel really stable and also learn a lot about business and how the business world works, etc.
What did you learn? Like, well, what did you actually? So you spent 4 years. That's not like you're 34 years old, 35 years old this year. Like 4 years out of that amount of time is a significant amount of your life. Like,
Yeah.
what do you get out of business school?
Oh gosh. I mean, you gain uh a, a lot. It's a lot of soft skills that you wouldn't otherwise. You gain responsibility, you gain really good habits on how to, organize yourself. You gain presentation skills, you learn team working skills, working with others, and you learn the basics of accounting and how businesses work, profit, loss, revenue, marketing a product, creating a product that people want, value, creating value, managing money, and kind of speaking how, because the world runs basically on businesses, and you get a basic understanding of how companies operate, what they're looking for, and how to thrive and in that environment. So you gain all those things. Of course, there's a lot of BS that comes with any degree that you have to pull through, but just getting that degree and pulling myself through, and also the internships. Like, I had 3 internships that gave me, first of all, they financed my entire school, because I just paid for school myself, and I got out debt free at the end because of the internships, which was amazing. And then they gave me real world experience and connections, which led to getting my first business job. So
More importantly, is it pronounced internships or internships?
I think it's internship.
Yeah, so you wrong. You wrong.
Okay. I didn't know there's a difference. People say I say the word bagel wrong. So
You say yes, yeah. Don't you mess with my bagels.
Oh
Don't
no.
mess with my bagels. So there you are. You just graduated Laurier. Congratulations,
Thank you,
Terry
Lucians.
BBA. Nice 3 letters. And you got to land a job. And you spend a few years at Jameson.
Yeah.
And you do some interesting stuff there. And then you spend a few years at Wild Apricot.
Yeah.
What is going on in Terry's life professionally? And what is going on in Terry's life personally? I'll say, as somebody who was watching you from afar, it was clear that you were doing well on a professional front. You were growing, you were, getting raises, you were getting promotions, like good things were happening. But what was
Yeah.
also clear to me was that something was missing. You were writing your novel. You were painting. You had this big, I don't know, moose head or something on your wall
Yeah. Oh,
that you
right. The
made
deer
out of paper
head.
mache. Like, there's always stuff going on. And it was this nonstop, like, creative vomit.
Yeah.
What the hell was going on with Terry?
I mean, I didn't even know. It's tough because when you're in it, you don't really know you're in it until afterwards. You look back and you're like, oh, well, duh, everything's so clear and obvious.
Yep.
Yeah, I would make homemade cards for people's birthdays or whatever, and everybody be like, "Oh my God, you should sell these," and be like, "Why?" Nobody like it's a stupid little drawing. But every time I do something creative, people would be like, "Why aren't you doing that?" And I'd be like, "Well, because there's no value. I didn't think there was any value in any of the artistic things that I was doing." And even at the time, I remember people would say that to me all the time, because I was just creating stuff all the time. It's somebody's birthday, I make them something, blah blah blah. But also every time somebody said that, I would completely discount it and be like, they're just saying that because they're trying to be nice. They don't actually like the thing that I'm doing. They're just being nice because they like me and they're my friend. That's how I always approached it. Even like family members, etc. I'd be like, oh my gosh, it's so cute. I'd be like, yeah, you're saying that because you're friends or your family with me, basically. So I never considered anything that I did had value because of that big wall that I built up. And I always like, I specifically knew in all that time that I had built that wall, and I didn't ever want to approach that again. So yeah, I was thriving in my business career. I mean, like, I wasn't super successful, but I was like doing well, and
You
um,
became an SEO expert
that's
before people knew what SEO even was.
fair.
Like that's not a joke. Like, you were highly sought out in the city. Like, you're an expert, Terry.
Well, thank you. Yeah. So, but like something about me is when I'm learning something, I like go to town, I learn like crazy and then if I feel like I haven't learned I'm not learning, then I switch to something else completely. So yeah, I picked SEO up, and I was like connecting with big companies around America and Canada, and talking with them on strategies and learning and taking courses and going to meetups and interviewing people. Like I was, yeah, I was trying out all the strategies, and I was using the software company I was working for as like a testing ground for what would work or not, and figuring out what did work and what didn't work, and then implementing those things and then teaching them to other people. Like, so yeah. And then when I reached a point where I was like, I don't, I've learned a lot, and I can see where this career is going. And I remember I got asked to speak at the National Nurses Conference in the States, and they offered to like fly me down. And I remember I was already speaking at a conference that my company put on, and I did a presentation. And then afterwards, somebody came to me and was like, can you do this presentation for the National Nurses Association? And I remember in that moment, I had a feeling. I was like, I don't want this. I don't want this path. I don't want to do the same presentation again for another, like, I don't know. It just felt disconnected, like, if that makes sense.
Well, somebody who's creative and wants to constantly create new things, repeating what they just did is probably not the most exciting thing.
There, that makes sense.
So that does make sense to me. Yeah. So something else happened in your early 20s that I'm going to go to. I
All
don't know
right.
if you want to, but I'll do it
Sure. I
anyways.
feel like I know what you're going to
You
ask
came
me.
out.
Yeah.
You came out in your early 20s.
Yeah, I was 25.
Was that a big moment for you?
Yeah, it was. It was very scary. And my whole professional and personal journey has just been trying to figure out who I am and do that thing. So, we're talking about animation, and it took me a while to figure that out and do that thing, but it's also highly tied to who I am as a person. And I don't think I could have ever pursued animation if I had not come out beforehand, because, you have I had a lot of mental blockages about who I was, how the world worked, what types of things I could and could not do, in the closet, how to approach, conversations with an average person, worries you have about what people think about you. And I can't imagine being in the closet and then also pursuing animation where you're constantly being judged for the art you produce if I didn't even feel comfortable with who I was overall as a person. So yeah, I came out when I was 25. There were years spent figuring myself out, and coming out of a highly religious environments where you don't have any support. In fact, you have the opposite of support for if you are LGBTQ plus person. So I had a lot to unpack there. Yeah.
I'm getting this sense that at some point, like to me, that was really pivotal. Watching you, I keep on saying watching.
Sheldon just watching me from the window, just
no, but I
look
think it was
over,
really,
and he's creeping there.
it was a really pivotal thing because it felt to me like you were almost giving yourself permission to live. And it's not like you weren't living before. You had a good life. You were working. You were accomplishing things, but that moment felt to me like this really big demarcation between, holy crap, I actually do have the balls to do whatever the fuck I want to do,
Yeah.
versus before I'm a little scared. And to me that was, I don't know, comment on that, because to me that was a pivotal moment. I'm not sure if you think that or if you know that, or what do you think?
Totally. I think you hit it on the head. I have nothing against religion or if you follow a religion, but from my experience, I grew up with the world very black and white. I would say very conservatively. And when you grow up like that, you grow up kind of living within a set of rules that you didn't decide and don't always make sense for your situation. And so, yeah, you suddenly, when I coming out of religion and then a couple of years later coming out myself, was kind of pivotal in me saying like, oh, I can choose my own destiny now. I'm not tied to the set of rules that are dictated by the religion that I follow, or the set of rules that society fits me into because of my sexuality. So I would say, like I said before, even becoming an animator was a very slow journey and process of figuring out who I am and how I can do the things I want to do in this world. And so, yeah, here we are.
So you gave yourself permission to come out. explore what it's like to be with men romantically, physically, etc., emotionally. But to me, what I also started to see is, you seem to start reflecting on, okay, just like I don't want to go do that presentation to the nurses, maybe that's a sign that maybe I should be giving myself permission to do something else. And
Totally.
somehow you went from that moment to, I'm going to quit my job and I'm going to school with a bunch of 18-year-olds. How the heck do you do that?
Yeah. Oh my goodness. I already feel myself getting emotional and I don't, it's because like, I like to reflect and I'm a very reflective person because of, I've had these stages in my life where I thought the world worked a certain way and I thought I had learned everything within this space that I was given, and then realizing that you don't know what you don't know until you know it. And like, in the scene where Dorothy goes to the Wizard of Oz, or goes to Oz, and it's color, and that's how it felt when I, came out of religion, and that's how it felt when I came out as a person and also as an animation, very impactful, pivotal times in my life where the world just felt totally open and exciting and new, and I could choose anything. So I forget what you asked, but oh, how did I go to quitting my job?
Yeah, because one of the things I also like about this is that you realize that you need to make a change. It
Yeah,
was clear, but you didn't just make a change. You made sure that you were set up financially, that you would invest yourself. So talk a little bit about that, because the truth is, it's kind of hard for somebody who has biweekly pay coming in and has
yeah,
an apartment in the middle of the city of Toronto, which is a lot of money. Like, it's hard to make that decision to go sit in a classroom with 18-year-old kids again when you're not there anymore, emotionally, mentally, financially. Like that's hard.
totally.
So what did you
Yeah.
do?
Well, I mean, I feel very fortunate that I was in a situation where I could do that. I didn't have any huge commitments. I didn't have a house to make down payment on. I didn't have kids. I have a dog, and that was the biggest and hardest thing to deal with. But it's got a babysitter. So, having a business career super, super helped me. And like looking back, I didn't realize that maybe I was there was something subliminal and unconscious in me pushing me to do this so that I could set myself up to take this career jump. But that's kind of what happened. I was in a situation where I was okay financially. I could take 4 years off of work. I could go to school, but also I didn't want to go to school at all. So, I and it was a very slow progress thing. One of my creative outlets was creating a watercolor comic every day for a whole year in the mornings and evenings between work. And through that, just, my 300 followers on Instagram, I started chatting with people on LinkedIn, and I ended up connecting with some random person who agreed to let me tour their studio in Toronto. And they like got their HR to approve it. And it's just me, a random person coming. And I took that opportunity to interview absolutely everybody there, because I couldn't even believe there was an animation studio in Toronto that had like 100 employees. It was crazy to me. And they were all like, oh, yeah, if you want to do this, go to school. And I was like, I don't want to go to school. That's so stupid. But enough people, I was like researching everything not to go to school. And then, enough people told me you should go to school to get the foundation. And I thought, well, okay, I'll apply. And if I get in, then I have to go to school basically. But also, I hired a tutor who I was seeing once a week, who was tutoring me in how to put together a portfolio to Sheridan. I was practicing every single night. I redid my portfolio probably 10 times over to make sure it was the best I could have done. I was reaching out to old teachers, old students, to get their advice, to get feedback. I was doing everything I possibly could. I was going to life drawing on my own at OCAD, just showing up to their life drawing classes, just this old guy and all the students. So like,
You're not, first of all, you were 25, 26. You were an old
I
guy.
don't know. At this point, I was 29. So, I was also doing everything I could because I figured, well, before going to school, I had a moment where after I came home from that studio, and I don't even know how to describe it. It was like everything, all of my experiences all came together into like one pinpoint thing. And I told you before where, I'd make something creative and people would be like, oh, cute, that looks great. And I realized in that moment that they were actually serious. So like I had like an out of body experience.
What was that like?
I don't know how to describe it. I've never had anything like that before or afterwards. It
Did
was like
you put a word to it?
insane. I don't know. I remember sitting on my couch and I had just come home from the studio and it was like all of my life experiences up into that point. I could like see them as a third person. And I was like, I would tell this person to pursue animation. If I'm looking at their whole life, they've trying to do creative things their whole life, pursued all these things that don't work. They found success when they were super young with claymation. I would tell that person just pursue animation. And it was like me telling myself to do the thing that I was too scared to do. And it was amazing. And I felt super powerful, but also vulnerable. And I just remember I was just bawling. I was just crying. I just couldn't stop crying.
But so here's the lesson I actually learned from that is you would never have gotten into that step unless you looked outside of yourself and you put one foot in front of the other and you said, yeah, I'm going to go on Instagram. Yeah, I'm going to connect with people. Yeah, I'm going to go create every single day. Yeah, it's going to become a practice. Yeah, it's going to be like, if you didn't actually take action, you probably would have been doing SEO today when nobody cares.
Totally, yeah.
Right?
But I can't even tell you what was compelling me to do those things. I just felt naturally compelled and I couldn't stop. Like it wasn't like I didn't tell myself today I'm going to start a comic that's going to last for a year. Basically, my brother was like, he calls me TJ. TJ, you haven't done art in so long. I don't want anything for Christmas except you have to draw me one thing. It can just be a stupid doodle, but that's what I want you to do. So I did that. And then I enjoyed it. So I did it some more. And then my friend Allison asked me for a thing. So then I did it for like 20 days straight. And then I was like, why don't we turn this into 30 days? And then I was like, why don't we turn this into 100 days? And then it turned into like, I just couldn't stop. I wasn't like, I'm going to do this every day for a year. It just started and couldn't stop.
Isn't the lesson there that if it feels good and it's not doing harm to anybody, that you should probably still do it?
Yeah.
Like I could imagine a baker that just can't stop baking.
Oh my goodness. Who is this person? I love baked goods. So
He's the one. Okay, so there you are. You're at Sheridan. Well, first of all, I keep on going back, and I talk about this because I'm your audience doesn't know I'm a professor. I teach 18-year-olds every single day of my life, and like I can't imagine sitting in the classroom anymore. What was that like? Like I'm with them and I hear their conversations
at all.
but like I'm with them, I hear their conversations, and sometimes I feel like we're speaking different languages. Sometimes literally, but not that's not what I mean. Like what was that like? Because you had to like figure out how to fit in, but you also were extremely strategic about the fact that you were older than them and you're like, I can't take their track to success. I need to come up with my own track for success.
Yeah, I mean, I had so much anxiety about going to school. I remember going for like portfolio review day, and obviously I was the oldest person there, and everybody was like 16, 17, 18 from high school. And I just remember being like, what am I doing? And also I was very afraid of the fact that, I was out now, because the last time I was in school, I was not out. And when I was in the closet, it wasn't okay to be out. That, people would make fun of or bully people who were gay all of my growing up. So it was also very scary to.
People did that at Laurier? I don't remember that.
I don't know at Laurier because I didn't, I was just studying, but like my experience like in high school and stuff was that, it's not cool to be gay. There was like one kid in our high school.
You didn't make the connection that going to an artistic place is.
I did not. In fact, I actually asked one of the professors ahead of time if, if they knew that like it would be okay. And they were like, yeah, it's fine. There's tons of gay people in art school. And I was like, why am I like this?
And then he asked you out on a date. It was really
right. No. But how do I say this? All of the fears that I always have are always there. And when I make a decision, those fears have more voice and are trying to like stop you from doing that thing, because being comfortable and stable is safer than having a risk. So every time I make a big jump, all of the fears that I have naturally have a much bigger voice. But I've learned that when I have bigger fears, that's actually a good sign to make a change, but it makes it so much more tough. And then looking back, I'm always like, why was I even afraid of this thing? But yeah, I had to learn. I felt like I was talking to people in a different language. The students were, have different lingo, and they know TV. Like, I grew up with certain TV shows. They grew up with TV shows I had never seen. Like, I had never watched Avatar: The Last Airbender until I was in Sheridan, and I was like, I should probably watch this. Everybody's talking about this. Yeah, it was tough. Fitting in, I didn't really feel like I fit in at first, but I was there to study, and it ended up being amazing. I super enjoyed being around all of my classmates, made some friends. And the best part was everybody's just creating art all the time, 24/7. And being in that environment was phenomenal. It was like eating, breathing, sleeping, this thing that was dormant in me for so long, and just absolutely loving it and being so inspired by everybody else. Like,
Did they teach you anything?
My
Yeah,
classmates. Oh,
yeah.
1,000%. I feel like I learned so much from them, different styles, how to approach problem solving. Just everybody's different in what they're good at, and kind of, somebody, you're doing an assignment, and this person is really good at like layout, so you'll be like, hey, can you help me with this? Or this person's really good at coloring, so you're like, hey, can you give me some advice on this? So yeah, it was super great. I loved it.
And you did something, I think in your first or second year, you started this podcast.
I started
How
this
the
podcast
heck did
the
that
first
happen?
month I went to school.
Why? Why you decided to, you were a full-time student, you were committed to getting the skills, and then you said, you know what? Podcast. How does that make sense?
I went to Taffy Conference, Toronto Animated Arts Festival International Conference, in September, first month, or maybe it was October. First month I went back to school, because in the business world, you go to conferences, you make connections, and that's how you do things. So I was like, obviously, I'm going to do this for art and animation too. And I was at the conference, and I felt so far behind everybody else, because everybody's my age, and older or younger or whatever, but they're already fully in their careers. They've been working for 10 years. They went to school when I went to school at Laurier. And I just felt like, what am I going to talk to these people about? I don't know anything about animation, really. I don't have anything to show other than my Sheridan portfolio, but like, what is that? So I was talking with one of my old boss, actually, and he's like, I was like, there's so many amazing people here, and I just don't know what to talk about. He's like, I was literally texting him in the conference and during a presentation. He was like, because he ran a podcast. He was like, start a podcast. Just ask the speakers of the conference to come on your podcast. So I was like, no, this sounds dumb. I'm not going to do it. And he convinced me by the end of the conference to do it. So I walked up to basically all the speakers afterwards, at least the ones that I thought were interesting. And I said, hey, I'm starting a podcast. Do you want to be on it? And they all said yes. Not all of them followed through, but two people followed through. And I was like, well, I have to figure out how to make a podcast now, because I already have a meeting with these. One of them was actually Fred Seibert, who's a very well-known creator of some of the biggest children's cartoons from the past decade or 2 decades. So his receptionist set up a meeting with me, and I was like, well, I guess I have to figure things out ASAP. So I contacted my old coworker. He gave me some tips. I did Skype. I got a Skype account, whatever, blah, 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 recorded. And then I had a podcast. And then that proved so
What's the
interesting.
outcome? So you spent hours, like hundreds of hours, doing interviews.
Of
This is
course.
episode number 200.
Oh my goodness,
So
hundreds of hours doing. Yeah, that's true.
hundreds of hours, like
Probably
weeks,
600, 700 hours, I would say.
plus editing, plus all the other stuff you do,
Yeah.
plus the SEO work you probably have done,
Oh my
etc.
goodness.
So hundreds of hours. What's been the payback? Like what did you get out of this?
Oh my goodness, I don't even know where to start. Personally, I have gained a lot of confidence in what I want to pursue as an animator from the podcast, from talking to people who have jobs that I thought I wanted, and just picking their brain, and then realizing, without having to do that job, like, I went back to Sheridan still having a wall up, still saying I'm never doing stop motion again because it's not a thing. I still had that wall up. It's a different story. But I went back to Sheridan to become a storyboard artist.
Mm.
And so, I was applying to Disney and Pixar within the first couple of months of going to Sheridan and putting together my own portfolios for them. And then looking back, I'm like, well, no wonder they didn't hire me. I wasn't meant to be a storyboard artist. But like, it took talking to storyboard artists on my podcast to realize it's not for me. And also, I'm not the type of person to thrive in that. So I've learned a lot about pursuing my own, what I want to do through talking to people who have pursued what I want to do, or who pursued something that I've realized is not a good fit. But like tons of other stuff, like, job opportunities, interview opportunities, making super connections, being able to talk to people and pick their brains that I would never have access to, just not having a podcast. Yeah, but also, there's a community of people who listen to this, and they've made connections too. People have sent me notes being like, hey, I talked to so-and-so, I got a job from this or whatnot. So yeah.
Yeah, I think podcasting is so genius as a personal branding tool, because in a world where the truth is, if somebody comes up to you and says, I want to interview for an hour, who the heck is going to say, no, I don't want to talk about myself?
Rarely somebody says no.
And I'm sure it's happened, but I'm sure most people have said yes.
Yeah.
And the outcome of that, really goes back to what you learned at Laurier. It's your network is everything.
Totally.
It's getting to know people is everything. Creating personal connections is everything. And, would you suggest some of the more recent animation grads or animation students start a podcast to compete with you?
100%. Yeah, I don't care if you compete with me. I
Will you
stopped
be
doing
on
all
their
the SEO
podcast?
stuff. I did the SEO stuff for like the first 6 months, and I just stopped. I was like, I don't, the purpose for this for me is to have conversations. If it takes off at this point, I'm happy. If it doesn't, I'm also happy, because I'm more about the value in the connections and info sharing for the people. I figure the people who want to hear something like this are going to find it. If you type in animation podcast, you're going to come across this podcast. There's literally 200 episodes. It's everywhere. It's on every platform. It's got a website. It's on YouTube, etc. So, and also it's pretty niche. Like, I just talk about career stuff, but yeah, start a podcast, make those connections. I also pitch original TV show ideas, and I've been able to pitch Netflix, the whole team at Netflix at one point, which was amazing. Nickelodeon, Cartoon Network, because of the podcast, because of people I met on the podcast who have like, oh, you know what? I saw your work, because now they know who you are. And they're like, I know somebody who would love to hear this. So.
And again, to me, the lesson is, again, just as you keep on doing, one foot in front of the other, try something out. Don't sit down and do nothing and expect things to come to you. Go get them.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, like I told you, when I was in business, I was always waiting for somebody to notice me artistically, if that makes sense, and give me an opportunity. And it never happened. 10 years went by, never happened. But literally the moment I decided to kickstart my own life, here we are just a couple of years later, and I'm animating on TV shows, video games, other stuff, etc.
So here you are. You are 1 month into Sheridan, and you spend some time in Sheridan, and you do something for the first time in your life that you've never done before.
Yeah.
You quit.
It's so hard
finish your degree. Explain that. You finish high school, you finished your Bible land, you did everything, but you didn't finish the one thing you're actually good at. What?
You mean animation school? I didn't quit 1 month in. I quit 3 years in.
You quit, but you didn't finish your degree.
No.
That seems crazy too.
That was a hard decision as well. And I feel like that decision wasn't made by me almost. So 3 years in, I'm going to school full time. I'm also working evenings on some stop motion interstitials for a TV show named Let's Go Luna, which is basically a full-time job. I basically finish school, and then the rest of the evening is just animating and creating stop motion stuff. And then I got a call in August or something saying there's a stop motion series coming to Toronto in January. Do you want to animate on it? And so I was like, well, I'm going to be in school. Can I do it part-time? And they're like, no, only full-time. And then I was like, sorry, I'm in school. I want to make a thesis film. This is my third year. I'm doing a group film. Like, I don't want to quit school. Like, I'm having a great time, blah, blah, blah. Pandemic hits, obviously, and changes that. I wasn't having a good time at school. And I got another call in September and I think again in December. And then finally I said, you know what? School sucks right now. I hate it. Online school is the worst, especially when you're doing creative stuff. I'm already animating. I just picked up 2 more interstitials at this point that would last me till the summer, essentially. So I was like, all right, I'm going to be okay. If I have these interstitials I can animate part-time on, and I'm animating full-time on this TV show for the next 6 months, I think that's okay. So I contacted the coordinator at Sheridan and asked if I could like take a break and come back the next year. And he was like, yeah, of course, fill out the paperwork, quit school, and was animating full-time on a TV show and coming home and making more animations at night. And that went great. And then from that experience, I just ended up getting more work and decided not to go back to school.
Do you think you'll ever go back to school?
I cannot. I mean, I thought I was done at Laurier. I told myself I'm never getting a master's degree. There's no point. But I can't imagine going back to school unless there's something really enticing or something I need to know to continue my career, which at this point, I'm okay. But also like, animation technology, et cetera, changes so fast. And I don't do CG animation, which is like a big gap for me in the industry. So there may be an opportunity to go back to school, but at this point, I'm saying no.
So one of the things that's kind of cool about you is that you don't do CG. You do this extremely niche,
Yeah.
I don't want to call it small, but it's not something that I assume most animators do. And again, there you go, going against the grain, taking that step, and you've been able to find success. Talk about that.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like it's found. How do I say this? I don't even know where to start. So basically, when I quit my business job, I quit a lifestyle, a very nice, comfy lifestyle. I was looking at buying a house. I was thinking about when I'm going to retire, going on the nice vacations a certain
You were thinking
lifestyle.
about retiring at 29?
Yeah. Well, like not at 29, but like, you're planning your life. You're like, at what point am I going to retire? Blah, blah, blah. Like those are the thoughts I was having. And we didn't talk about this at all, but part of me pursuing something artistic was realizing when I was thinking about what I want to do with my retirement, it would be animation. And so I was like, well, why the fuck? I'm going to be maybe 60 when I retire. I don't know when. And then I start animating, and then it'll take me 5 years to learn to be decent at animating. I'll be 65. And then what am I doing? I probably just am too tired to do anything. So I was like, why don't I quit now and learn animation at 30 and then spend 30 years animating and then retire and then be fine. So I keep thinking back to, that lifestyle I gave up. And if I gave up that, why would I do something that isn't exactly what excites me? And I don't think there's always going to be times where I'm excited about a project. But so far, I feel very fortunate and lucky to be given opportunities that are exactly what I want to be doing. And what I want to be doing is crafts and hand-drawn animation, which is like the 2 things I started with, like Corel Draw, like literally using like the mouse to paint characters, and sitting alone in my bedroom making paper mache things. I literally just the Taffy conference came up again, the one that I went to, and they asked me to make their signal film, their promo film for their festival this year, which is like really amazing because like
Full circle moment
that they asked me to make that, and I made some paper mache robots for them.
One of my favorite things about your life, whenever I come to your place, I always get excited because you give me a tour of all your sets and stuff. And you're like, yeah, I went to the Dollarama and I bought this clay, and I went to the crafts, and I'm like, what the heck is going on here? Like your life is crafts, and the cool thing is you've been able to make a living off of that.
Yeah.
Can we talk a
That's
little
crazy.
bit? It is, you make a living off of the dollar store.
Yes.
That's awesome. Can we talk a
Yeah.
little bit about money? Like, have you been able to replicate salary? Have you like, are you able to? Do you see yourself being comfortable in this career as time goes on, or being an artist, does that actually complicate things in terms of your lifestyle?
Yeah, I mean, so one thing that business offers is stability, benefits. You can stay at a company forever as long as if you want. You can work your way up if you want. And I don't have those things as an independent animator. I don't work for like I work for studios, but as a freelancer, like the studio I'm working for now, like if I want to take a month off and work at another studio, I can just basically say bye and do that. So I don't have benefits. I work hourly wages basically. There have been moments where I've exceeded the salary that I left because I'm working a bunch of different things. A gig will come by that offers very nice pay, but also that's it like even it's like peaks and valleys. It evens out with jobs that aren't great. I was working on a job last year that I super miss it. It was amazing. I absolutely loved it. I took it because it was something that I really wanted to do, but it wasn't paying my rent and groceries, basically, if you look at it. So yeah, I would say right now I'm doing fine, which is great. And I'm looking to build more passive income streams in my life to build some stability. So I have that business acumen, create a product, market it, whatever. I've been thinking about how can I do that with the knowledge and skills that I've gained to create more of a passive income so that I can continue to do the projects that excite me. But, the animation world is kind of project to project. It's not like you sell vitamins forever. You have a season of a show or you're needed for something and then it's over.
However, people will always want animators and cartoons because all of us like cartoons. Who the heck
Well,
does?
until AI takes over. But
So
that's
I
another
was
thing about,
actually about to go there.
yeah,
Like
go
I was
there.
about to like what like you're quite knowledgeable. You're extremely bright, not just good looking, but like what does animation look like in 5 years, 10 years, based on AI? Can AI do
Yeah.
you? Could AI go to the dollar store and build that stuff?
So, I mean, CG animation can already replicate stop motion to the point that sometimes I'm like, is this real or is this CG? So I firmly believe AI will, be writing and producing fully animated shows. There's no question about it, basically, at this point,
So
from what I've seen.
what becomes the animator's role? What becomes your role?
Yeah, I mean,
Has
so
to have
like,
some piece of this value chain.
well, yeah. So I mean, this is a bigger discussion, but for me specifically, I'm pursuing two of the oldest animation forms that for some reason are still existing because people want that very specific old school, but in a modern way look that only can be done by somebody with that's pursuing that. Like, stop motion is the first ever form of animation. You can go all the way back to like 1910 where people were doing it, and it's still existing and thriving because it's such a niche form and it excites people and it's something that's still different and you can have a very specific artistic vision. Of course, you can replicate a stop motion film in CG or potentially in the future AI, but it won't have the same appreciation where you can see, half of stop motion is seeing behind the scenes and seeing somebody make this and coming to my apartment and seeing crafts. Like, that's exciting to people. And like hand-drawn animation, which I'm working on right now, is exciting because it's hand drawn and it's got the imperfections of humanity and there's a lot of labor intensity in it and et cetera, et cetera. So for me, I'm not too worried because like I said before, I'm pursuing things that excite me. And if I'm not, I should just go back to business because I already have experience there. I already know what it can take. And if I'm not pursuing the things I want to do, then why am I doing this?
Passive income stream, tours of Terry's apartment.
Yeah, I should
There you
charge.
go. Go
Next
play
time you come
around.
over, it'll be a $10 fee.
Oh no. Can I get the free tour? Is there a free option?
Yeah, but you only get that once.
Aw, well, I think I've exceeded that. So what happens next? What projects are you working on? What's Terry the animator gonna do next? Is he taking over the world?
I mean, I'm just sitting in my apartment, just crafting and drawing all day. So I'm happy. Yeah, what's next for me? This is constantly on my mind right now. So I'm 2 years out of school and I still am gaining
Animation, you're 2 years out of being an animation school dropout. I want to
yes.
be clear.
Yeah, two
Good.
years out of dropping out of school.
Thank you.
And I still feel I'm gaining a ton of experience all the time. And I kind of like the first year I was like, I really feel like an incubating egg right now, and I haven't hatched yet. And this year I feel like I'm starting to put some cracks in that egg. And I kind of have this, I feel it's like welling up building of I need to make a decision maybe in the next year of what I want to do. And is that start my own studio? Is that, try to become a director of something? Is that building something for myself that like a video game or trying to get a TV show? I mean, I'm already trying to get a TV show off the ground, but like, really taking it seriously, starting a Kickstarter, getting a producer. Like, so I don't know exactly what that is. A lot of it is leaning towards a studio. I've been chatting with some people already. I've been chatting with many people about many different opportunities, but it's more or less like, what am I going to be pursuing? So, I'm working on this video game that I have right now, which is amazing. I love it. I can't talk about it, obviously, but because it's not out, but it's super fun. It's really cool. I feel extremely fortunate to be working on it. There's some really cool animators that I'm learning a ton from. And, but that's not forever either. That's potentially wrapping up at the end of this year. So what's next for me? I don't know. I can't say. I always ask this question to everybody I interview, just to see, where they're at in their journey and what they're going towards. And for me, all I know is that, I have this posted on my Instagram. There's like a bunch of stories that you can that are saved that basically a reminder of like why I'm doing this, why I'm here. The purpose is that I want to be creating magic and I want to feel excited and I want to give people that sense of excitement and magic in the work that I do. And I think for me right now, as long as I'm doing that, I know it's going to be a good Terry time and I'm happy about what's happening.
Could you imagine a world where Terry isn't animating for a living?
Yeah, I think he would be very torn about why he's doing things. I already felt like that when I was in business and I did a lot of soul searching.
So are you addicted? Like, is there no way out of this? This is it.
I don't know. I think about this sometimes because I literally animate all day. I have side projects I work on at night. I'm part of an artist collab that doing another thing. I run a podcast. I only like on social media, I only follow and look at animations and I watch anime. I was just at an animation fest. It's like,
And he doesn't see his friends enough.
oh, okay, Sheldon.
Little dig.
Yeah, and I think about, I have a development option agreement for this silly duck wizard with a studio in Montreal, and we're like shopping that around. So like, all I do is eat, sleep, animation. I think, I think, I think this is slowing down for me a bit too. I think a lot of it had to do with that wall that I had up for 15 16 years and then breaking that down. And like when I went to Sheridan, I was doing nothing. My hours were like 10-hour days minimum, just working on animations, being excited about trying something, et cetera, because I couldn't get enough of it. And I wanted to also learn as much as I could as fast as I could because I was 30 and I'm competing in the industry with people who are not half, but almost half my age.
Yeah.
So, because, and, that was a worry for me as well. When I'm applying to studios or making connections, are people going to care that I'm this old? Literally nobody cared. And in fact, I got opportunities that wouldn't have been given to me because of my age and that I had a business acumen and the maturity and responsibility. In fact, I was told that for this video game, for instance, it came through a random connection. But it was because I am more mature than, the average person out of school or whatever. So yeah, it ended up being the business and the life experience ended up being a super asset to me in these terms. But I do feel that I am slowing down a bit, and I'm trying to build more of a well-rounded Terry person. For instance, I this last year I became part of the Big Brother Big Sister program to try to give back to my community a little bit. If you don't know, basically, it's a partnership, it's a mentor partner match with a kid in your community, and you meet with them once a week, and you just hang out to have a grounding experience where you can build some trust and normalize just hanging out with somebody. So my little, he's actually super interested in crafts and stuff too, so we're making a cosplay together right now, which is fun. Yeah, so stuff like that, and like spending more time with my friends and family, because school was a giant suck where I didn't see anybody at all. So I am trying to build more of a well-rounded base for myself as well. So
You sound like you don't believe what you're saying.
What do you mean?
I don't know. I'm just looking at you and I'm hearing that it's almost like it's an aspirational thing as opposed to an actual thing. What do you
Well,
think?
yeah, no, it is. I'm trying to build more of a well-rounded. Like, I just got a Nintendo Switch actually, so I could spend more time.
Invite me over.
All right, I'm playing Breath of the Wild right now.
I don't know what that is. I know
It's
Mario Party. That's it.
it's all right. We can play Mario Party. It's Zelda, but so that I have more downtime where I'm not just doing animation projects, which is nice. I'm cooking more often, etc. Like getting a more of a base, because I don't want to burn out, and I want to also enjoy all aspects of my life. I mentioned before, animation is one thing,
Yeah.
business was one thing that I had to figure out and build that grounding of myself, and animation was another thing that I had to over index on for a while to figure that out for myself. And now I'm trying to incorporate more well-roundedness in my life.
I love that. So I want you to go back to where we started.
Oh no.
That kid.
Yeah.
That kid in KW. You're from St. Jacobs, no?
Waterloo.
Well, you're born and raised in Waterloo? I didn't know that. No idea.
Yeah.
So that kid in Waterloo, looking at your life now, what would he tell you?
What would that kid tell me?
Yeah. Like would he be in awe? Like what would his reaction be to your life?
Oh goodness. I think he would want me to do more, actually, because when I was a little kid, I wanted to direct movies. I had this like weird fantasy of appearing on Oprah for the paper maches I was doing. Like, I think that little kid would be like, "Great, you're doing exactly what I'm doing now." But like, can you like go do more, go harder, like, because how do I explain this? Um, I I still want to do something super impactful for a lot of people. I want to create something that has an impact on society, or just, a whole generation of kids. That would be absolutely phenomenal, like the best thing I could ever do in my life. And right now, I'm working on things that are really, really cool, but they're not just, they're really cool, and they're for people, and it's amazing. But I'm getting more self-fulfillment in doing them myself, for myself, if that makes sense. Like, I'm just super happy to be crafting and hand drawing and blah blah blah, and I feel like, oh, this is so cool for myself. I don't feel like I'm creating that thing that little Terry felt like he was meant to do, where I'm creating something to give to the next generation of kids or animators or something. And I feel good about this podcast, because it is a way that I'm giving back, but it also has a lot of self-fulfillment in it. So there's a thing that I don't know what it is yet, that I feel bound to create and figure out at some point. But like I said before, I still feel like I'm just putting some cracks in that egg, of where I'm at in that stage. So I think that's what little Terry would be like. He'd be like, "You're just doing what I'm doing now."
Is it possible that I'm going to sound like a very individualistic person? Is it possible that the best way to help the world is actually to make sure you're the happiest Terry you could be?
Oh, 100%. Yeah, I really think that, and that's part of deciding to have a little now. I don't have a family, but because, I wanted to give back, and I felt like I was in a good enough space in my life where I could, encourage somebody else to be the best themselves. So that's why I started doing this as well. So 100% yes, but like I said, the egg, I'm still figuring things out for myself. I'm still gaining a lot of skills and experience. I'm still, on that path to do something big, I think.
Final question.
Oh,
We heard what baby Terry told you. What would you tell baby Terry, little Terry?
yeah, that's a great question. I think the overall message in my life, and even with like the TV shows that I'm pitching and stuff, it's just everything's gonna be okay. Little Terry had a lot to deal with constantly, and not, everybody has their own struggles. I had my own struggles. I'm not discounting other people's or my own, but like it was a lot for me to deal with, all the time, being, closeted and very religious, and also, pursuing the independence thing and not having support from my family, and just dealing with all the stresses and anxieties and unsureties and hardships and emotional times, and just knowing that everything's going to be okay and you're on the right path. I guess.
I love that. Terry, thank you so much for talking to me.
Oh,
I learned a lot about you. Do you have any final thoughts?
what did you learn about me that you didn't know before?
That's none of your business.
Okay, all right.
No, I learned a lot about you because, look, I adore you. I think you're a fantastic person, but we very rarely have an hour and a half, almost an hour 45 to sit down or whatever it is, and actually just talk. And it's when you are vulnerable as you were able to be right now, and you're willing to like give of yourself. To me, that's when you, as the best Harry individual, has the ability to help the world, and I truly believe you are helping the world with what you're doing, and you're helping yourself. And I'm so proud of you. I think you're fantastic. You know that.
Oh, well, thanks, Sheldon. That means that means a lot to me, and
It
I
is.
feel really good about that. And just thank you for saying that. That feels so nice.
Terry, wrap this podcast up.
Okay. Final thing for me, at least, I need to like go back to what my original goals are every once in a while to make sure I'm on the right track, because it's very easy to reach a point of familiarity and stagnation and just stay in that comfort zone. But the only way that I've been able to push myself to greater things is to remember why I'm here. But that's all that I have to share, I guess. So thank you so much, Sheldon, for joining me on the podcast. You did an absolutely wonderful job interviewing me, and I hope those listening enjoyed this as well.
Thank you, Terry. I had a lot of fun. Thank you.
Uh-huh. All right. Well, that's a wrap. And if you're listening and you want to reach out or follow me, I feel like you already know how to do that. You can check out my Instagram or my website, which I'll include in the description of this chat as always. And that's all for now. So thank you so much for listening. Okay, bye.
Bye.
The music for this podcast was composed by Willem Mendo and the graphics by Luhan Wang. I encourage you to look them up if you've enjoyed their work.